Hello everyone and welcome to the ScreenSkills Select RTS Scotland Industry Insight session on film and TV roles and hair and makeup. My name is Victoria Traitors and I'm Accreditation Programme Manager at ScreenSkills. Today we'll be delving into hair and makeup roles in film and TV with industry practitioners at different stages in their careers, discussing their current roles and previous projects they've worked on. Please note that we're going to be recording this session. There will be a Q&A towards the end of the session, so please submit any questions you have via the Q&A feature. It would be helpful if you could mention who the question is for when submitting these, and the question will be put to the panel during the last 15 minutes of the session. So ScreenSkills is a national skills body for the screen industries. We provide targeted support to retain and build a skilled and inclusive workforce critical to the screen industry's global success. We work across the UK to ensure that film, TV, visual effects, animation and games have the skills and talent they need. We identify skills gaps and shortages across the screen industries, support and quality mark education and training, and offer professional development opportunities in screen. I manage the ScreenSkills Select endorsement scheme, which endorses and enhances screen courses that develop industry-ready students. By identifying the UK's most industry-focused courses, we enable employers to recruit the best talent. The Royal Television Society for Scotland is an educational charity promoting the art, science and craft of television, and schedule informative events all year round on a host of different topics, from their annual Scotland Awards and Student Awards to the prestigious Campbell Swinton Lectures, plus other events relevant to Scotland's television industry, featuring Scottish production teams and programmes, all tackling issues impacting television production and broadcasting in Scotland. So let me hand you over to Liz Tagg, who is Principal at the Ivor Makeup Academy, which is based at Pinewood Studios. Liz will be facilitating this session and will introduce you to each of the industry speakers. And I really, really hope you enjoy this session. So thank you. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Victoria. Hi, my name's Liz Tagg. I started my career as a hair, makeup and SFX artist back in 1984. And I've worked on numerous television and film projects over the years. I'm also the principal at the Ivor Makeup Academy based at Pinewood Studios. We hope that today's session will give you a greater insight into the routes into the career, the various roles in the makeup and hair and SFX departments, and how to progress through your career. In my career, I've worked in many different roles within the makeup department, working as a makeup and hair assistant, artist, crowd makeup supervisor, and also a hair and makeup designer. Now, obviously, the start of my career was a long time ago, 40 years to be precise. Times have changed, but it's very important for you to know that even today, all makeup artists start at the bottom of the career ladder as a trainee makeup and hair artist. Once you have gained this vital experience, you can start working your way up to makeup junior, assistant, artist, supervisor, and designer. One of the many attributes of a makeup artist is to be very versatile, adaptable, and resilient. We can film up a mountain in hundreds of layers of thermals and huge coats and deal with the problems of sticking beards on actors with frozen glue and frozen fingers, or working a night shoot in the rain, looking after hundreds of extras and still be professional and smiling at 4 a.m. Whatever the locations or challenges that we've thrown at you in your career as a makeup artist, the most important aspect to consider is that this job you can spend all day, every day, doing something that you love and getting paid for it. There are many mediums to work in as a makeup artist, from fashion to theatre to TV and film. In today's session, we'll be concentrating on the makeup and hair and SFX department roles in film and high-end TV. There is a general structure to most departments, though some can vary, especially on the larger budget productions, with teams being split out into makeup department, hair department, SFX department, and of course, with A-listers bringing in their personal teams. However, around 80% of high-end TV and film shot in the UK will follow the structure that we'll be talking about today. So it may help you to know a little bit more about these roles and the career progression. Thought I'd give you a brief description of each role, from trainee entry level through to designer, and then you can hear directly from the panel about their day-to-day experiences in these roles. So the starter position is the trainee makeup artist. It's a vital position of any film. You will be supporting the makeup team with the makeup such as dirtying down, looking after background artists, removal of prosthetics and SFX. Also, you'll could assist the designer or artist with complicated hairstyles by passing them pins and grips or rollers and hot sticks, watching and learning all the time, as well as organising paperwork such as timesheets, petty cash, and all importantly, the continuity file. A film trainee should expect to work for about 2 years before moving up to junior role, probably another 2 years from junior to makeup artist, but this can vary between individuals. The junior role is the level up from trainee. You may often have to support the team with dressing and applying wigs for the stunt team and actors doubles. You may be expected to create a character hair and makeup look on an actor or supporting artist. Depending on your hair experience, you would be required to cut hair. Another vital role of a junior hair and makeup artist is supporting the department with their admin tasks, such as ordering stock, organising fittings and crowd rooms. I do know juniors in film who are very happy to stay in their position for longer than 2 years. On high-end TV and film, you'll be earning BEC2 rates and gaining experience without the pressure that comes from being a fully fledged makeup artist. You can imagine that it's really daunting experience to see a close-up of your makeup and hair on an actor on a huge 20-metre high cinema screen in Leicester Square. You want to be confident of your abilities for that. When you're ready to move up to makeup artist, this requires skill, speed, and confidence. The craft skills required for this role are extensive, and the job can be high-pressured, as when working with actors and celebrities, soft skills are essential. Although the artist will always follow the brief from the makeup and hair designer, they are responsible for the character's appearance on screen. You're expected to get your actors ready on time to a high standard. Stand by with them on set while shooting and record images and take notes for continuity. The makeup and hair supervisor role can be split into 2 subsections. Main team supervisor, who is the right hand of the designer, and crowd room supervisor, who is responsible for the background artist fittings and crowd calls. The supervisor can sometimes be in charge of 80+ artists in a big crowd room. These crowd rooms are run with military precision. Supervisors will liaise with assistant director team to ensure the smooth running of fittings and filming days. The makeup designer role, the makeup designer is on board well ahead of the shooting dates. The designer collaborates with the director, production designer, and costume designer to create the designs within the budget allocated. For each character that appears on the screens, wigs, facial hair, prosthetics need to be designed and facilitated. In general, the designer will choose the team, ensuring each member of the department has the correct skills to facilitate the production. On the panel today, we have artists from each level of the department: Miriam Sumeray, trainee makeup and hair artist; Georgia Hobbs, makeup artist, prosthetics artist, who's done the trainee role, done the junior role, and is now artist role and just about to move up to do some designing; and Jacqui Mallett, hair and makeup designer, who has been doing the job as long as I have, because we trained together. Miriam, I'm going to start with you. And I've got a few questions. One of the biggest questions and the most frequently asked questions I get asked is, how do I find work? Could you tell us your journey from graduation, your first steps into the industry, and the biggest challenges that you came across?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that definitely is the biggest challenge, is knowing where to look for your work. It's an industry where things aren't always posted online. Designers are often talking to the people that they've hired previously or getting references from them. I think as a trainee, the thing that's going to set you apart is your soft skills, more than your practical skills. So you need to be a really personable person, be organized. I think start networking now. Don't wait until you've graduated to try and make those contacts. The people that you're studying with now are going to be part of your network. I know my fellow students, when I was training, got me some jobs on things and I got them jobs. WhatsApp groups are really important to be part of. A lot of jobs get posted in there. There's a trainee and junior WhatsApp group, and Instagram posts as well sometimes. I know I got my first role by contacting someone on Instagram. I actually assisted them on a music video, which was a little bit different. before I actually graduated. But then once I did graduate, they were working on a pilot and they asked me to join them. It was like a couple of weeks after I graduated, so that was perfect timing to get some experience on TV. And then from then, I would work on student films and short films and build up my skills and confidence and portfolio, and really just be networking with everyone and utilize your tutors, utilize your fellow students.
You've been lucky enough to be part of the ScreenSkills Trainee Finder scheme. Can you tell me how that's helped you?
That's helped massively in terms of knowing, well, in terms of having the opportunity to apply for productions, because like I said, a lot of stuff isn't posted online. So while you can be sending your CV out to people, it's not necessarily when they're crewing up. You sometimes find out about these opportunities after they've already crewed up. So with the Trainee Finder, you get an email call out saying this production is looking for a trainee between these dates and these dates, and then you get the opportunity to send your CV. So for me, that's been really helpful. I landed my first one a couple of months after joining the Trainee Finder, and then from then, that helped me also get my next placement, because the supervisor on my next placement knew the supervisor from my previous one, gave them a call and got a reference. And so for me personally, that's been a massive help.
Are you able to give us a few examples, not breaking any NDAs, of course, of productions you've been involved with? And
Yes.
if you're not allowed to say names, if you can just give us the genres and the kind of thing you did.
Yeah, so my first film placement that I got via ScreenSkills, it was a modern day vampire film, which was an adaptation from a novel. And that was a really fun one to work with, because it was modern day. I got to be quite involved in helping out with the hair and makeup, which isn't always necessarily what you'd get to do as a trainee, but it was really fun. There was also some blood involved, which was fun. And it was kind of like a dark comedy. But then my next placement was very different from that. It was a drama based on a true story, and it was set between late 60s and late 70s. And so it was really interesting to be able to see how two completely different productions work. Both were only like a couple of months long. They were like 7-8 week shoots, and it's just amazing to see how quickly you can get like a big film done. Yeah, and then since then I've just done quite a few dailies on various genres, but those were the two main big placements that I've had.
Can you describe a day-to-day from the minute you walk in the morning? What are some of the first tasks you would be expected to do as the trainee?
So the trainee is usually the first one there. You want to make sure that if you're on a makeup bus, so if you're on main team, that everyone's space is clean and set up and tidy. You want to get your towels into the towel warmer if there is one. Make sure that that's all prepped. Always boil the kettle when you first get in as well. Make sure you're ready to get the teas and coffees. If you need to put out any continuity photos, make sure that those are out. Any like hair pieces that I needed. You might want to unblock the wigs that are going to be used for the day. Then once everyone's in the chair, you might be assisting by passing pins or doing tattoo cover. Depending on the job, that will vary. You'll make sure you go and get everyone's breakfast and do teas and coffees. Make sure that the mothership bag that's taken to set is stocked up.
Could you please explain what the mothership is?
So it's kind of like a communal set bag in a way, with in there you should have like lots of your consumables. Maybe you'll have some extra hair products or stuff. If it's something that involves blood, you might have like a little blood bag in there. It's basically just got extras in there that everybody can use, and kind of like your emergency products in case something gets sprung on you last minute and the artists don't necessarily have it in their set bag. So as a trainee, you just need to keep on top of the stock in that bag, make sure it's easy for everyone to find, everything's labelled. And yeah, so that's part of the duty. And then you'd obviously be getting everybody's lunch. You might be on set helping with continuity photos and things like that. Or you might be on the bus and doing your admin. So this could be like ordering stock or like updating the continuity files, perhaps helping with like accounts and timesheets and things like that. Make sure everything's tidy after the call. And then at the end of the day, you might help de-rig, make sure, again, everyone's got their hot flannels. You might be washing hair at the end of the day, cleaning wigs and facial pieces, maybe blocking up the wigs, but I would always ask if they want you to block up the wigs, because some might prefer to do that themselves. And yeah, that's kind of day to day.
And how different is working on the main bus to working in crowd, would you say?
I would say the main differences are obviously in crowd. There's typically a lot more artists. So that's a lot more people to make sure that you're helping, but also a lot of them will be dailies, so won't necessarily have the context of the wider production, and they'll be recreating looks that other artists have made. So it's really, really integral to make sure that they've got the right photos, if there's any hair pieces or accessories that are used, just to make sure that they've got all of that. And you will probably be the person that they come to ask all the questions to. So just make sure that you're aware of where everything is, and not just in terms of like the makeup kit, but in terms of set. They will come to the trainee to ask where everything is, where they need to be going, etc. I think also on a makeup bus, that is your home for the entire shoot. There is usually space to be putting everything, but it is very small, and it's also designed to move. So be mindful, especially during the call, that you're not walking around too much, because it can be jogging the bus, and you can be like getting in the way of people as they're working. But a crowd room, that could kind of be anywhere. Could be a big tent or a hall, or like I've recently been in a science lab. So there's not necessarily a storage for your stuff. So you just need to make sure that you're really on top of what stock you've got, and that it's all organized in boxes, and just to make sure that you get everything back at the end of the day, and you're very aware of where everything is.
So there's a huge proportion of creative versus admin and organization, isn't there, in the trainee and junior role, actually, and then designer role. What would you say the proportion is for being creative and admin in the jobs you've done?
I think it varies massively. In the vampire film, for example, that I was on, I would say that was a bit more 50-50 creative admin, which isn't often the case with trainee roles, but there were a few variables of that. Like, for example, there was a junior, so I was able to share some of the administrative duties with them, and there was also no crowd team, so they needed me to be a bit more hands-on with helping to get people ready, and it was modern day. Whereas the one that I did afterwards was definitely more admin heavy, although I did have creative, like, opportunities to be creative on it as well. But again, that was a period piece, so it's a bit more precise, I guess, in some of the looks. There wasn't a junior, so it all fell on me to do the admin, and there was a crowd team. So it varies massively. But on that, I was still doing like helping with tattoo cover, and I was making like plastic partings, and I did look after some like day players. I'd say the creative element varies more than the admin, because every trainee role will have administrative duties. So it's really important to make sure that you're organised and computer literate.
Yeah, it's a really important thing to say, isn't it? To be computer literate. I mean, most departments now, they all have their portal for putting through your shopping lists and your payments, etc. But each job you work on is all slightly different. But at the end of the day, they all need the same information. It's all about time and money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to move over to George. So George, you've been a trainee, you've been a junior, you're now up to artist level, and soon to have your first designing job. Could you tell me the biggest difference between a trainee and junior level to start with?
Yeah, sure. So from my personal experience, moving from a trainee to junior, the most important thing is that you have to remember that you're still learning. And as Miriam put really nicely, you still have to kind of take part in those administrative tasks, but you will be given a lot more responsibility in terms of day players. So stunt doubles and even on set, you'll be expected to go in for checks, and you'll have that experience from being a trainee and being around on set and understanding when you need to go in, when's the right time to go in, what you're looking for, etc. And also just looking around at what your makeup artists around you might need as well. So I think it's kind of a lot, there is more responsibility, but that you have to remember that you're technically still learning. I mean, I believe that you'll be learning forever. You know, things change all the time. You'll always be learning. You know, you'll teach, sometimes I might teach someone something that they've been doing it for 30 years and vice versa. You just never know where you're going to learn from, whether that could be a trainee or a junior or an artist. And that confidence as well. I think when you first come in as a trainee, it's very daunting. I remember my first time on set was terrifying because I just thought, I don't want to get in the way, I don't know where I'm going, and you don't initially recognize other departments, so you kind of don't know. There's a couple of times where I've been asked, oh, can you go to the people with the iPads, and I just think, what what do they look like? So it's just that building on that confidence and that experience, but yeah, very important that you're still present and helping your trainees with extra admin, because at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same goal. And even as an artist now, if I see the trainees overloaded with work, yeah, I'll come in, I'll make some continuity photos for you, I'll do whatever you need, because we are still a team, and I'm don't feel like I'm above doing anything that's going to help them personally. And then from junior to artist, it is, like you said, Liz, confidence and speed. And I think a lot of it is being able to think on your feet, because things can change so quickly. I remember when I was on Enola Holmes, it was just me on the makeup bus, and I was doing a stunt double. And I got a message through on WhatsApp saying, oh, by the way, he's been stabbed in the hand with a pen. And no one knew this. It wasn't in the script. It wasn't anywhere. We had nothing to do with someone who's been stabbed in the hand with a pen. So I had to paint it on with just flat makeup and just try and make it look 3D as much as possible. And I think I had about 5 minutes, and we also had there was no blood, because at this point there was no blood in the script, there was nothing. And the one bottle of blood we had was on set with Millie. So yeah, it was just like thinking on your feet and being able to kind of stay calm through that as well is really important. So yeah, and just knowing where things are on set. And also I think your knowledge of periods as well. So we do so much period work over here in the UK. And I think it sets you apart when someone can just say a period and something pops straight into your head of, oh, okay, I know what that looks like, whether it's like a facial hair or, a big hairstyle or just men's hair in general. So I think, yeah, it's just knowledge, and the difference between a junior and artist, I think, is just what I like to refer to as mileage. I got my driver's license when I was a trainee, and now I'm just driving and driving and driving and getting to that point where I'm confident enough that I could, think on my feet and do whatever is asked of me at that point.
Brilliant. So as far as key skills and qualities or even qualifications are concerned, what do you think the people who are watching us today, listening to us today, what would you say are those key things that they need to concentrate on?
I would say a big thing in terms of skill now is 100% barbering and haircutting. It definitely sets you apart. The last job that I did, both juniors were kind of fully qualified barbers, and a lot of the time the juniors were doing all the haircuts. When there's times off set where we've got cast members coming in who need haircuts, and all the other artists are on set with people who they're looking after that day, You know, it fell to the juniors to do things even like perms on wigs and stuff like that. If you can get salon experience with colouring, perms or cutting, it really would set you apart. Even from a trainee level, if you can cut hair, it's absolutely vital, I think, now. And yeah, I think that's probably my main thing. And in terms of qualities, I think it's really important that you're just kind of a teachable person. If you're curious and teachable, a lot of the time when I've spoken to designers or they've asked me to look for trainees or juniors to come in and help us, they've said, you know, I don't mind necessarily if they're not at the top of their game. If they're a nice person and they are teachable, I would much rather that and help, you know, be able to teach someone. And I think it's, yeah, being personable is super important, because you know, we spend so much time together. It's basically, you end up seeing the people you work with more than your own family and your friends. So if you get along, it makes everything so much easier.
And also, you don't get the chance as a trainee and junior level to show off your craft skills in the same way as the artists do. So the way that you prove to people how professional you are is through your soft skills and through your etiquette, you know, the etiquette of being on set and working as a team.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, you know, people leaving college and graduating, what advice would you give them to make them more visible to potential employers?
One of the main things that I find that I end up looking at is I have a lot of people, especially coming from Ivor, who will message me on Instagram and just kind of almost introduce themselves to me and make themselves known. And a lot of the time in that instance, I will follow them back. But I think one of the main things I notice is watching people practice, whether it's on a dolly head or on a member of their family. If they're posting about that, quite a few times I have seen that and gone, oh wow, that's really nice actually. And then it stays in my brain for if somebody asks me, oh, do you know a trainee or a junior that could do this? So I think social media is a huge part of it now, massive. There's so many Instagram pages that are kind of posting about people who are available. And you can post yourself and tag those Instagram pages, and then they will repost you. And it basically just gets you out there a lot further. But I think it's important to contact people that you would like to work for, whether you know they're on a job or not. It's important to kind of stay present in that moment and just keep practicing and posting that, because you kind of never know who's looking at it. Quite a few times I have reached out to people through Instagram, and just because I know I can see what their skills are because they're showing it to me, whether they know they're showing it to me or not, I'm watching it. So I think that's a really good way of getting through it. And the WhatsApp groups as well. I only discovered those not that long ago, and I'm in a lot of those now. And you know, even I personally have posted jobs in those. I've had people come out through the WhatsApp group, and it's a really great way of knowing about jobs, especially if it's so last minute. The amount of times I've been asked, oh, we need someone tomorrow, and they need to COVID test today, because this was back during COVID times, which made it so much more difficult, because we had to COVID test people before they came in. So yeah, those kind of things I think are really important. I think social media plays a huge role in work now for us.
I think it's also important to say that if you've got if you're trying to get hold of people of my generation, we don't use social media in the same way. Sorry, we're old, me and Jacqui. We don't use social media in the same way, but you can usually find them. You know, you can look at the Knowledge Online, for example. The Knowledge Online will give you a list of all the productions that are in pre-production, currently shooting, etc. And you have to be a bit of a detective, because the makeup designers are not going to be on there going, I'm doing this, this is my email, because they'll just get inundated. So you have to do a little bit of detective work. You will be able to find the production office phone number or email. You might be looking at something which is series 4 of something that it's already shot 3 series. 90% chance that it's going to be the same makeup designer. That makeup designer might have an agent. You can get your CV to them through their agent or through the production. So you do have to do a little bit of detective work, because it's not like a job as an accountant where there's a website that all accountants' jobs are listed. It doesn't really work that way. You know, do as much networking as you possibly can. If there are ScreenSkills events or free webinars like this one, BAFTA do quite a few events, but anything in your local area, make yourself visible. Nobody knows you exist. So Spielberg's not going to be calling you because he doesn't know you exist. So you have to put yourself out there so that they know about you. And if you know, if you are good at what you do and you have the right etiquette and the right personality for it, everything else, all those learning your craft skills comes, doesn't it? It comes with experience and time, etc. So George, what is your proudest moment and your biggest challenge so far?
I've got a lot of proud moments, but I think for me, the one that sticks out in my mind was when we won our Emmy for Bridgerton for hair, and being able to watch Mark, my designer, thank me in his Emmy speech. That was a surreal moment for me because I was, how old would I have been? 24, I think, and to hear my name at that point, it was just, yeah, it's something I will never forget ever. And receiving my Emmy certificate as well, for contribution to the Emmy was pretty crazy. And as for biggest challenge, I think my biggest challenge, which was also quite a funny one, is when we went out to Sardinia for the Little Mermaid. Peter Swords King, my designer, had assured me I would not be going in the sea at any point and that I could just wear my normal clothes and it would be fine. And that wasn't the case. And one day, fully clothed, we had a lot of mermaids in the water who had extremely long wigs and they were just matting and knotting up from just sitting on top of the water. And everyone was in there apart from me and Peter. And he just looked at me and he said, "You're going to have to go in the sea." And I was just fully clothed, and he just put like a tail comb, some wig glue, and a brush in between my fingers, and just sent me out into the ocean. And that's what I did. So I was just in there fully clothed, and there's nothing I could do about it. And it was, I mean, luckily it was beautiful. It was about 40 degrees, so it was actually quite nice. But that was a huge challenge because, you know, they were in quite deep, and I'm not very tall, so I'm up to here in water with my hands above my head, with my tail comb, my glue in my hands. Trying to be helpful. So that was a huge challenge for us.
Brilliant. So George, you're about to embark on your first designing job, which congratulations. How do you feel about that?
I feel excited. It's definitely daunting. I mean, I've worked very closely with designers at different levels, whether that's trainee or junior or artist. But it's still daunting to know that it's going to be me. It's going to be kind of my thought process and my designs. And it's still very early days, so I have waiting on my script so that I can break down everything, figure out what days I'm going to need people, figure out where I need to budget for certain things, because there might be some special effects involved. But I'm excited. I'm really excited. I love creating characters, especially with a good backstory. I think that's super important. So I'm anticipating it.
Brilliant. Really excited for you. So Jacqui, yeah. You've probably seen many changes in the different roles during your career. Could you talk a little bit about what you feel is the most important thing for people graduating and going into first steps as a trainee?
I think we've all talked about this, or you've all talked about this. It's about being personable. It's about being likable. It's about being teachable. It's about wanting to learn. I think that's the main thing for me. It's like people coming to you wanting to learn and wanting to ask questions. I find it very frustrating when you have a trainee that, you know, they get an opportunity to come and work with you and they come and sit on the bus or the truck or the crowd room and they sit in a corner and they don't say anything, or I understand that it can be very daunting and a scary place sometimes. There's so many, but you have to be interested and you have to be enthusiastic and you have to be keen to learn. So I think for me, it's like, I want any of my staff to be asking me questions. If they don't know the answer, ask the question, you know, because I don't know what you don't know until you tell me what you don't know. So I think it's that's one of the big things for me, learning how to deal with people. I think people skills are probably one of the most important things, actually, even more than our creative skills sometimes, because you can be the best makeup artist, but if you're not very personable or you don't get on with people who rub about the wrong way, your skills aren't going to get shown. And on the flip side of that, you can be a not too great makeup artist and do exceedingly well because your people skills are very good. So for me, it's those. It's come with wanting to learn, being prepared to learn, being prepared to be adaptable, with some knowledge, because I think, again, it's that thing of, don't kind of go, I always want to be a makeup artist, but you don't know anything about the industry, whether that's current things that are on the TV or the cinema. Have an interest in period, if that's what you want to do. Obviously, you don't want to do period, you want to do modern day, you want to do fashion. But then, even then, I think even in modern day and fashion, you'll watch them harking back to period and stuff. You know, even the Pat McGrath stuff at the minute, there's lots of finger waving, and you know, it's modern, but if you don't know what a finger wave is, you don't know where it comes from, that you kind of need to have some knowledge. It's something when you say to people about black and white films and you have somebody go, who's that? You know, who's this person? You can't know everything. We can't all know everything, but you can have an interest at least in what you want your craft to be.
It's about immersing yourself, isn't it? I mean, I know we've all got Google at our fingertips, but if you're standing opposite a director or an actor and they say to you, I want a Clark Gable moustache, and you don't know what that, you can't stand and Google that in front of the director, because that's just embarrassing. You need to know what a Clark Gable moustache is. I mean, if somebody said to you a Marilyn Monroe hairstyle, we all know what that is, because we should all know who that is. But there's a lot of these people throughout history that a director or an actor or an actress is going to say an iconic look. So it's about immersing yourself in the history of it and, you know, and the love of it. Watching as much stuff as possible. And that's not just Barbie and Wonka, it's from years ago. You know who the big makeup designers are today in TV and film, know who the big fashion makeup designers are, but also know who they were in the 80s, 70s, 60s, etc., and how the progression of things like prosthetics, how that has moved on massively in the last 20 years, actually, with the advent of silicone and now with digital. You know, we teach a lot of 3D scanning and digital printing, 3D printing in our prosthetics bit now, because that is the way the industry is going. It will happen, because we know that happens. Technology will do what it can do. But from as far as people always say to me, what's going to happen to our departments with the digital? The glam squad will always be the glam squad. We'll always be here. Those actors want us there, they need us there. And even the film called Here that has just been shot here at Pinewood with Tom Hanks, and they've done a lot of the it's not aging, it's the youthening of Tom Hanks. They've done it digitally, and you can look this up online and see how they've done it, but they still needed the makeup team to do as much as they possibly could for the cameras to be able to take over, and they can't do hair. So it's really important moving forward in this digital age to do hair, because the computers can't do hair. It's not solid enough. Really, really important. Yeah. So Jacqui, I know you and I have Jacqui and I trained together back in 1984. And we spoke about, we spoke about our teams and when we're working, how we like our teams to work. And every department will work differently. They will have the general role of trainee, junior, artist, etc. But you all work differently. Can you just explain how your departments work, Jacqui?
I think it depends on the size of the production. I think that's the other thing. I think the bigger productions you do, it's almost the smaller role you have. You know, the bigger production is all divided amongst everybody, and you have lots of trainees and lots of juniors, and you know, you won't be packing up and you won't be doing this and you won't be doing that. And the smaller a team gets, or the smaller production gets, the more work you do. So if you're on main team, or if you're on a truck, you know, you're doing a lot more than just doing the admin. I mean, I've always we've had this conversation. This part of me thinks it's quite wrong that my most junior members of trainees or juniors are doing all the paperwork, because you kind of go, I think that's quite a big responsibility, and that's something as a designer or as a trainee when I started off, that wasn't, you didn't get to do that. You know, you wouldn't get to look at the continuity folder or deal with those kind of call sheets. You'd be told where to go and what you were doing. Whereas now I think you do have to be a lot more across all of that. And as you said, Miriam, you find that people come to you and ask you where you're meant to be and what you're meant to be doing, rather than going to the designer. It used to be that it was the designer that had all the answers, you know, but often, yes, we should have all the answers, but at the same time, you're the ones that have been given that information, you're on the floor, because sometimes the designer doesn't even get to the floor. You know, I mean, I'm a designer that likes to be on the floor. I like to see what's going on. I don't like getting that shock of watching something back that I've worked on and that's not how I set something up, or that's not how I establish something. So I quite like being on the floor as much as I can, but I know there's lots of other designers that don't even come off the truck, some of them, you know. So I think every job is different and every designer is different. So every role is different. Every time you can have this basic idea of what you're going to be doing, but you, as we talked about before, you have to be adaptable because it can change at the drop of a hat. And what one person likes, somebody else might not. I mean, how many times have you been told that you block the wig this way, or you wrap a block that way, and you go on your next job and they go, oh, you don't wrap a block like that, you do it this, or you don't put your pins at an angle, you put them in straight. You know, unfortunately, all of us designers have our idiosyncrasies of what we like and how we like to do something. At the same time, as you also said, Georgia, I can learn from my trainee or my junior daily because they have skills that I don't have. My computer skills, to be fair, are pretty ropey. And my daughters all attest to that, because I go and go, how do I work this? How do I work that? So having a young team is brilliant because they can do the continuity and they can do the paperwork and they can find this and they can Google that and they can set up Zoom when I've pressed the wrong button and deleted myself. So we all have our part to play. And I think that's really important. I don't believe anybody should be too big for their boots. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're at the top or the bottom. We all play an important part and we're all a vital cog in a very big production and a very big wheel. So whether it is getting the teas or the coffees or the lunches, I can guarantee you that's probably one of the most important roles on the truck, to make sure that everybody else is fed and watered. You only have an hour if you're lucky, if you're not doing checks and you're not traveling back. So for somebody to have gone off and got your lunch is probably more important than, you know, making sure you've got your main bag, but it is important. And don't leave it on the back of the bus or in the truck or on set in vision. So yeah,
one thing that we haven't covered, that I'm very aware that we haven't covered, because we might have people who are interested in other departments, is how closely we work with other departments, how closely we work, obviously, with costume, with lighting, with the designer and director together to create the looks. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that collaborative process from prep through to shooting?
I think even, especially on period stuff, I think on modern day stuff, it's kind of, it is as collaborative and you do have those conversations. But I think when you're talking about period stuff, I think it's vitally important, especially with your costume designer, because you're talking about, if you're talking about wigs or we're talking about hair, often, you know, if they were outside, every person has a hat, male or female. So you often have to design your hairstyles around the hats you're going to be wearing or the hats they're going to be giving you. Or often you'll be in a crowd room and you'll be given a hat and it won't work with the hairstyle you've just created. So you can have to go back and say, you know, is it possible to change this hat? Is it possible to rearrange this hat? Because sometimes you can't change the hair depending on what the hair is you've got to work with. Other times you can, if you've got pieces and wigs, or sometimes you can change them. Directors, for me, I think it's, you know, you can, as a designer, you can have a vision of what you would like, but ultimately it's what the director wants, and we're there to facilitate him or them, her. And if you're really fastidious about an idea that you have, then you might need to use your soft skills to try and adapt them and try and make them work. Or they might not be aware that the actress that you have is really quite quirky or has an issue. I don't know, for example, maybe your actress has got really big ears and they don't want all their hair scraped back, but that is the period. And you maybe have to try and adapt that slightly to cheat it, to make it functional for the period, to keep your artist happy, to keep your director happy. So I think there's a lot of those things. Lighting, again, if you have and you probably know this, Georgia, it's like you can have a black eye that works perfectly every time, and then you get it on set. Like today, you can see it's really, really bright. So the black eye that you've done isn't going to look the same for it being in a dark room or, you know, a shadowy room. So you might have to go in heavier and darken it down and make it heavier and add more blood or take the shine off because this light's hitting it. You know, wig lace and lights, formidable as ever, you know, trying to lose wig lace and with lighting. And how often do they go and give you the key light and it's hitting you right here on the wig lace? Can you not just cheat it back a little bit? Or you have a lighting cameraman or Sarah DOP go, can you move that hat back? That hat's creating too much of a shadow. And they're not prepared to give you a fill light. So you've got to cheat the hat back, even though every shot it's been tilted down like this, you know. So we could sit here all day and talk about the times and things you've had to change stuff, or, you know, I don't know, somebody comes into the crowd when they've got gel nails on and it's period and you have to go to costume, can you give me gloves because I can't get them off? Or they come in with lash extensions, you know, all of these things. Yeah, we could write a book about all of the things you have to collaborate with and have to sometimes try and make work on the day. But again, as I said, I generally believe it's about teamwork, and none of us can do our job without anybody else, any other department, you know. So we will have to be there and we have to work and adapt together and make it as pleasant as possible.
Yeah, working as a team is so important, isn't it? I mean, from the minute you start prepping, which is the designer's job, and you sit around a table with all the heads of department, to when you're actually shooting on set, and as the makeup artist is there with their actor, getting that actor perfect for that shot, so is the costume department, and so is the props department, and you're all in there doing final checks, which are moments before you start shooting, but you have to be humble and be aware that everyone else has got to do their job as well. It's not just about you, and that actor has got to act. They might be shooting a really difficult scene, so, you know, you have to be empathetic to the emotions of the actor and not go in and start fussing with them if it's not necessary. But you have to make sure they look right for the part. So there's so much involved in the process of collaborating to make this piece of art all come together.
There's times, you know, you mentioned it there, there's times you have to forgo doing your checks. If you've got an actor and you can see that this is just not the right time, it's not the right time for you to go in and move that little bit of hair. You know, lots of people don't think are important when you're watching it, but you know for a fact that it's not going to cut the same, or it's not going to edit the same. But at that time, you have to make a decision about what's more important, the continuity or the fact that that artist is going to get the performance out, because the director is going to be more interested in the performance than that little bit of hair. On the flip side of that, there's also crucial times when you kind of go, no, that bit of hair needs to be there because it's continuity or it's written or for whatever reason. So it's about, picking your battles, I think, and decide which one's the important ones. And
some of the hardest ones, Jacqui, I'm sure you'll agree, is where you see, and it's written in the script, and we see the tear roll down her cheek, and you just think, yay, that's going to take a bit of shooting, because by the time they get to that close-up of the tear, she's probably all teared out, right?
Out, exactly. Or they've done the wide and they've had tears down here, and then they go and they want the individual, all of the above, the above. Or sometimes you just hope you've got an actress that can cry, or then you have other actresses that by the time you've gone through half a tear stick, or you know, they've then got red eyes, and you're then trying to create this lovely one tear wonder, and they're squinting because they've had so much tear stick that they can't actually see any longer.
So we spoke a little bit with Georgia about social media, and when you're working on a production of a certain caliber, you have to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which means you cannot say anything, you cannot take photographs, and you cannot post anything until the film or production has aired. Can you talk a little bit about that for us, Jacqui, and how important that is?
I think it's really important. We were actually, I can actually talk about this actually, because it's not even going out now. I wasn't designing it. I was in the crowd room. We were filming on Batgirl, which has now been shelved and gone out. And it was meant to be this big ball sequence, and all of these characters were dressed in these specific costumes. And one of the supporting artists actually took a photograph of herself, posted it on social media, and it was like repercussions went through the whole of the unit because it was quite a crucial part to the story. She was sacked. She was sacked there and then. But also it was just so naive because they're all told that you shouldn't be taking photographs and you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that. The same storylines for programs. And when we were told, not in the same vein with a big thing, we've just been doing Gladiators, the TV show, we weren't allowed to post anything about any of those characters because they wanted it to be this big launch. The first time they were going to see them was on these days and those days. And they have a whole, most production companies almost, they have a process of how they want to put that information out about the film and the story. And you don't want to be given that little bit of, you don't want somebody to be taking a photograph of a little bit of a snippet of where of that story and where it's going to be, even to the fact of we're not even allowed to post where you're filming because you don't want hordes of people rocking up. When we're doing Outlander, again, I don't design that, but when we're doing Outlander, the call sheets are like gold dust. They've got your names watermarked on them because so that if anything gets leaked, they know who to pass it back to. They don't want crowds and crowds and crowds of fans on set causing aggro if they don't want it. So it's very, very important that I mean, how often, you know, it's like, Liz, you have photos and photos and photos that you've taken on set. You can't publish them sometimes for 3 years later until it's been put out. And then by which time you've actually forgotten you've worked on that job half the time. You think, oh, I should really be doing a bit of social advertising here and putting out pictures of stuff that I've done. But you're on to your next job and you've moved on to your other thing. And so, yeah, how many times you're told not to have your phone on set, although half the time you're having to use that to do your continuity and you're having to use it for your pages or for your screenshots. But yeah, not to take photographs of actors and people unless they one, if they approve, and two, that the production aren't going to haul you over the coals for it. So yeah, be careful.
I think the best way of being is you can promote yourself on social media, but if in doubt, just don't say it, don't do it, because we're used to it here. We're at Pinewood Studios and they have tracking software on all social media. So as soon as anything comes out, nobody's allowed to take a photo, even walking down the driveways. You're not allowed to. And so do all the big films, you know, and anything like Outlander. There's a lot of press that rolled around it and they want to be in control of that. And as soon as somebody leaks it, they're no longer in control of it. So it's a big deal. It is, you know, it's a big deal to them. I know that you work on a lot of period drama, but you also work on light entertainment. What's the difference in the working patterns and hours for those different kind of jobs, Jacqui?
Well, as you well know, well, there aren't really any working patterns and hours, are there? As such, if you're filming, normally a normal filming day would be, you know, you turn over at 8 o'clock and you wrap at 7 with an hour for lunch if you're lucky. That depends whether it's on continuous working days, semi-continuous working days. You could have half an hour prep and wrap. You could have 3 hours, you know, prep. Depends on the job. I think studio and light entertainment is a little bit more, I was not going to say civilized, it isn't really, it depends on, then your studios could be 10 till 10, so you could be doing a 12-hour day. Our normal days are 12 hours minimum, probably, unless you're doing a continuous working day. And I think most people in the industry don't really think about how long our days are. And people talk about, a working week, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 40 hours, you're like that. We've probably done that in 2 or 3 days, you know. So lots of hours. But I also think, for me, I enjoy it. I mean, I've always enjoyed it. And I think you have to be a bit of a glutton for punishment, I think, sometimes. You know, it's this 9 to 5 nonsense. I'm kind of going, really? But at 5 o'clock, you're thinking about you've still got 3 or 4 hours to go and, you know, you're on set. In Scotland, it's a bit different because often it's very dark. So our shooting days can often be early because they need to get stuff shot before it gets dark. Lighting, studio wise, you don't have a makeup room. You're not normally on a truck. I think when we did Gladiators, we had audiences of 10,000 or something. We were in arenas, so that's live TV. So you have an absolute strict deadline of you start turning over when you start turning over. I think there's a little bit more flexibility on set and on location, but again, not always. You've got a first AD that's wanting it to run on time, and you're trying to get stuff shot. You're not going to complete anything unless you work to a schedule. So I think, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not. I think I might have.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. I have got some questions from the attendees. This one, I actually think, Georgia, this is a good one for you to answer. Are there opportunities to work in special effects only?
Yeah, 100%. I did a job earlier this year, which I can't say what it was, but we had a whole separate prosthetics team which worked completely separately as a department from hair and makeup. So absolutely, and they had their own trainees, their own juniors, their own continuity, completely separate, as well as workshop opportunities. I think getting into a workshop, you know, I see advertisements all the time for people like Christian Mallett, KMFX, who are looking for workshop trainees or people who sculpt and things like that, which is a completely different. Oh. So yeah, you absolutely can just go into prosthetics. I think sometimes initially when I started the job, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do prosthetics. I'd never touched hair, and hair terrified me. But I quickly changed my mind, and since coming out, since I graduated from Ivor, pretty much every job I did was all period hair. So it was the polar opposite of what I thought I was going to be doing. And then I slowly got into doing more prosthetics after that. But I think it's important to make sure you have all those skills. Even if you then want to specialize in prosthetics, that's fine. But I think having those skills of hair and makeup as well, because, you know, it's one of those things of they could go to prosthetics and they could have prosthetics put on, and then I might have to lay over hair over the top of that. So we have to be able to work together. So it's important to know kind of how, you know, if you're only prosthetics, that they still cross over quite a lot. And if you've got a full face of prosthetics and then a wig has to go on, you know, or you're putting makeup on, there's a lot that they kind of cross over. So I think it's still important to have those three skills at the start. But absolutely, you can just do prosthetics. Absolutely.
Thank you. Miriam, this is a question for you, I think would be a good one. What things should they be thinking of doing when they're not working?
I think when you're not working, firstly, don't be disheartened, because there are going to be quiet periods, especially when you're starting out, and it can seem a bit daunting and overwhelming. But I think if you just keep working on your practical skills, so whether that's on friends and family, or on dolly heads, and try and work on as many faces as possible and build your confidence, but also work on your CV, work on your cover letter, work on have like admin days where you're doing your research and looking online, or even if you're just watching loads of TV and film and just really thinking about what it is about the hair and makeup that stands out to you, and maybe even like looking at a picture of a hairstyle online and trying to figure out maybe like how they created that. I know there's loads of good books as well on like wig dressing or on special effects, and try practicing that. But I think the main thing is just try and focus on like what the fact that you're passionate about it, and don't get discouraged and disheartened if there are quiet periods. And the more you do, the more confident that you'll feel.
Thank you. I know that we're concentrating on high-end TV and film today, but you mustn't forget that there's work in theatre, there's work in fashion, photography, e-commerce, private clients, and all this thing you can earn money at. You know, because we've had an actors' strike last year, a lot of my graduates, I've been pointing them towards theatre. Obviously, if you're in a big city, you're going to have theatres there. It's the same skills, it's the same job, and you're getting your skills up, you're getting your speed and your confidence up. So don't just wait for Disney to be calling you. There's all these other routes that you are doing the job you're trained to do and getting paid for it. So I've got a few more questions here. Sorry, was somebody going to answer that?
Yeah, I was just going to say also, it's like, don't also go, oh, I don't do theatre, because funnily enough, I've had 2 shows of my TV shows have actually gone to theatre that we've been on tour with. So I've been on a tour bus like Marilyn Monroe and in a little bunkle and having to try and then take, so we did something called Grandpa's Great Escapes, which was a David Walliams TV film that we did as a Christmas. And they then did it as a theatre show, a theatre tour, which we then had to adapt it and take it on tour. So one of the original characters I did was actually Jennifer Saunders, where she played 2 characters and has to reveal herself as a woman to a man. We had to then adapt for theatre for it to work in a live action, repeat day in and day out. So again, theatre is a great way to go and learn and hone those skills as well. So as you say, Liz, don't just go, I only do TV or film. Theatre is a brilliant, brilliant place to go and hone those skills as well.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'll just add on that. I did some theatre as well after graduating. I worked on a couple of shows, and I think when you're first starting out, it's really, really good because you tend to be a bit more hands-on in theatre than you are when you first go into TV and film as a trainee. So it is really, really helpful to help with your speed. I mean, you usually start getting people ready an hour, 45 minutes before, and you've got 17 people to get ready in that time. So it is really good with speed, and also with working with wigs and blocking up wigs. Obviously, there's differences with film lace and theatre lace, but in terms of like working on your confidence and your skill, it's really, really good, and it's fun.
Yeah, actually, Miriam, you can answer this. This is a question from Helen. In terms of wig blocking and creating wigs, does that need to be a skill you need to have before being a trainee?
I think you definitely should know how to block a wig and be able to handle the wig lace, because often as a trainee you might be asked to do that. However, I did have, going back to those 2 films last year that I've been talking about, and the first one, they were very happy for me to block all of the wigs and clean all the wigs and do that. But on the second one, they didn't want me to block the wigs until someone showed me how to do it, even though they know I've blocked wigs in the past, but it's because they had a specific way that they wanted me to do it. So I would never just go in and take the wig and do it. I'd always ask if they're happy for me to block it. But I would say that is definitely a useful skill to have. In terms of creating wigs, is that styles or actually making a wig?
I would think it's probably the creating the style. So it's always down to the designer to create that style, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that just comes back to what I was saying before, where you're just trying to practice creating different styles, same as you would on a head, but instead on a wig. But again, you just need to be careful of the fact, like, I guess you just need to be more mindful of the fact that there's wig lace there, and you have to be careful that you're not catching it and ripping it. And again, you need to block up the wig in order to do the style on the wig.
Jacqui, there's a question here specifically for you. When you're talking about how designers might like things a certain way, how would you go about knowing that, and what questions would you be asking?
I think I'm trying to get out. My son's coming through my living room window. I think it's a designer will like something a certain way. Their team will know how they like that certain way as well. So you don't have to ask the designer. If the designer is one of those people that doesn't like to be bothered with those little questions, the rest of their team will know, because they'll know how they like that done. So whether that is as block, whether that's using tape, no tape, lots of pins. You know, we all have different ways. Normally it's the way you've been trained, to be honest, but sometimes it's also the way that you like, or because you're trying to protect, you know what the budget is. What I was going to say to you before was, I think it's very important, not that I think you need to be able to not. I think it's great if you do. I think it's a really good thing to know what's actually involved in how long it takes to make a wig, how the fact that most of those hairs are put in individually. I think you gain more respect for a wig. I think it's a lot of people, not all, but I think, there's been trainees that have come on that don't have that respect because they don't realize how valuable that little piece of ball of net and hair is, or how long it takes, or how difficult it is to replace or to repair. So I think if you have that bit of a knowledge, it makes you value those pieces you've got. How many times have you seen somebody going to take a wig and they're about to dip it in a bowl of water rather than blocking it, or they haven't blocked it right, or if it's not been knotted correctly and the roots and the points aren't all facing the same way, that it's going to go into this great big ball, and then the trainee's going to be sitting there at the end trying to get it all out. I think that kind of knowledge is irreplaceable. You need to know that weather as well can screw wigs up. Outland, a prime example. By the time all of your principals come back in, or any of your extras come back in, this back bit of their hair is like one big knotted mass because it's all been rubbing on their collars. And you need to know how to look after those. So it's not always all just about the lace. It's about everything else and managing it and making sure that it's blocked correctly so you don't get bagging and stretching and distorting of the shapes.
There's quite a few questions that are about courses and what courses to recommend, both for afro hair courses, wig courses. Please do look at the Ivor Academy website. All our courses are ScreenSkills recognised, and if you are upskilling, that means you're already a working makeup artist. There's a possibility you could get a bursary from ScreenSkills to help fund any upskilling courses. So please do look at that. I won't answer all the individual questions about courses. Would you recommend any platforms or apps to find creative industry work? I think we kind of covered that, Georgia, didn't we, with the different social media?
Yeah, definitely. Instagram is definitely a big one. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups as well, which is, I suppose, considered a little bit more old school now. But Instagram, Facebook, there's a lot of fashion work that goes through Facebook groups, and WhatsApp groups as well. There's also regional WhatsApp groups. I think there's different ones for like London, Bath and Bristol. There's a different one, and then I expect the same with Scotland and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot on there.
Yeah, thank you. There's one question here for prosthetics. Are there any books that you would recommend for human anatomy that have good quality images? I know we've got loads on our bookshelf, but I wouldn't be able to reel off the names of them, I'm afraid. I can always...
There is one thing that I would say is worth going to see, which I did. There's an exhibition of real human anatomy, and it's all real bodies. I think it might just be called Bodies. It was in London not that long ago, and it might sound a little bit gruesome, but it honestly isn't. It doesn't feel like that at all, but it's incredible to see. Like, the whole nervous system of a body in front of you is incredible. But if that is anywhere near you at any point, go and see it. It's 100% worth it.
I think also, we were old school. We used to do medical journals, actually going and looking at medical journals, and getting those from either old ones from old libraries or old bookshops or anything like that. Because there's really good photographs, because they're, these people are training to be surgeons, so you can actually find old medical journals in sort of historical bookshops and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty gruesome. I wouldn't sort of, if you
You've got to be a little bit careful with Google, because it's difficult to know whether it's primary reference or secondary reference. So obviously that means primary reference means it's the real thing. Secondary reference means a makeup artist has created it. Absolutely. So it's difficult to tell with Google sometimes if it's a good makeup artist. I think we have managed to answer all of the questions in the group, and we are now I think we're getting close to the end. I just want to say a huge thank you to Miriam, George and Jacqui for today. Miriam, if you've got one final bit of advice for people starting off, what would it be?
I think say yes to everything, to every opportunity that comes your way. Like, don't fail yourself, like just thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Give yourself the opportunity to try, and always ask questions. Don't let yourself feel like you're drowning in work or that you're completely out of your depth. people are nice, generally nice, and are happy to help you. And I think the more that you're open and honest about your abilities, the further you'll get.
Absolutely.
And George, final bits of advice for the viewers.
I would just say enjoy it. There are definitely going to be days where you are cold and you are wet and you are very tired and you're a little bit grumpy, but you'll look back on that job when it's finished and you won't remember that. You'll remember everything that you enjoyed about that job, and you'll miss the family, the little family that you made on that job. So yeah, try and enjoy it, even if you're in really difficult circumstances at that point.
And Jacqui, can you remember that far back? I can remember leaving college and how
Yes.
daunting it was. Final
Yeah,
bits of
but-
advice.
But do you not? I'm trying, but I kind of go. We were talking about it, funnily enough, the other day. It's one of my first ever jobs at the BBC was Tutti Frutti, and sadly, John Byrne recently passed away, and they've been doing reruns of it on the telly. And you know, there's still friends I made on that job. I was a trainee on that job. There's still friends I made on that job are still my friends, and we still talk about it. And I think the good jobs and the bad jobs, you'll always have stories to tell, and you'll always make some really, really, really good friends. And I think, yeah, we've been doing it 40 years now, Liz, and we still talk about it. You know, we still talk about it with fondness, and very rarely is there something that's maybe that unhappy that I was miserable. And to be honest, I could probably count them on one hand, and they don't matter because there's not that many of them. So just enjoy it.
I think it's
Just
also
enjoy.
important to remember, as artists, we will all get our moments with imposter syndrome. However many Emmys or BAFTAs or jobs you've been asked back, we all have that moment of, oh my God, the work I've just done, it looks awful. We all have that because we're artistic, and artistic people are more sensitive, so we're more prone to that. So keep that in mind. If you're having a wobble and you're feeling you've lost some confidence, just remember that we all feel like that, and keep going. It's a fantastic career to have. You know, I'm the other end of my career after 40 years. You are just starting out. It's absolutely fantastic. And every day is different on set. Every job is different. And the people you meet, I count myself so lucky to have had the career that I've had and continue to have. I really hope this has been helpful and informative for you all. And I hope that if you're all ever in Pinewood Studios, you come and say hello to us here at the Ivor. I wish you all well at the start of your career. Have a fantastic journey and good luck.